I was there for the launch of the well, let's get this right. It was TMA 20. It was yeah, I'm going to say Soyuz TMA 20, but anyway, Paolo Nespoli was the Italian European Space Agency astronaut who was on board there. Now, he's about 6'3", which is colossal for an astronaut.
I was about to say
they had to change the way the Soyuz module fitted to get him in.
I believe it.
And he was a brilliant guy. I mean, you can't have too much contact apart from through the glass with the guys that are actually going up.
Right.
But his wife, she was a nurse at Star City, which is I guess Star City is the equivalent of Houston.
Okay, gotcha.
And
launches and things like that.
Yeah, that's where ground control is.
Yes.
And Baikonur would be Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy. Yes, no. Anyway, so they'd met during his astronaut training, and I got to spend a bit of time. He'd been up in space before. He'd been up on the shuttle, but this time he was going to the ISS, and he would be there for 6 months.
Wow.
Long time.
Yeah.
And his wife gave us a brilliant series of interviews just about what it was like from her point of view.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
There's a lot of it is pretty glamorous, let's face it.
Really?
But there is a lot of danger still involved in space travel.
Yep.
We've seen just from the most recent tests of the SpaceX rockets, the Dragon rockets and everything like that. Things still can go wrong. Thankfully, those are unmanned.
Right.
But, when things go wrong, they go wrong catastrophically.
Yes.
And, she was genuinely worried. But she knew that every step is taken. Everything is checked, triple checked, quadruple checked, and then made sure. And it was a fascinating insight to talk to them, and being able to, at what must be the most intense period just before they go up, to not be able to be near them because you have to, because they basically have to be kept in sterilization before they go up. I mean, tragically for Paolo Nespoli, his mother died while he was in space. They go through an awful lot, and I've got a lot. It was literally days. She died before they came back, before their mission came to an end. And it was, I think of all of the people that I've met, whether it's politicians, whether it's, celebrities from whatever walk of life, it's the cosmonauts, the astronauts that I've come across that have been the real, they're the ones that I don't know, they lit me up massively in terms of seeing human achievement, and not just human achievement in, say, a physical sense in terms of sport or in overcoming various different things, but just the all-round package, and being that close to them and realizing, these are actual people as well. They're not just some kind of, superhuman set aside. They've got lives outside of, sitting on those rockets and flying up into space. So it was one of the coolest things I've had the privilege of doing. And if, it's funny, I was talking to the agent and the management company, and they were like, hey, don't work, they're American. Sorry, I will try and do your guys' accent, but it's like, hey, don't worry about it. We're here to make sure if they ever want to send you into space and anything like that, we make sure that you don't get. I was like, no, if they ever get the chance to send me into space, I want to be sat on the end of that rocket. Yeah. I would bite anybody's hand off for the chance to go up there. It's I just think it's such a fascinating, such a, always kind of obsessed to a certain extent as a kid with the idea of exploration, with travel, with everything like that. And, that is that. God, I was about to say final frontier. I was about to stop myself just before, but it's that last great unknown.
You're right, because you look at it, and I don't know, I'm not a science person, but really, the days of coming across new land and discovering new territories, that is over, really here on Earth. And you can really, unless there's some major, expansion and new discoveries with ways to get deeper into the ocean,
yeah, of course,
you really can't, because with all that pressure and there's there's an incredible amount of unknown in the ocean, but whether we'll ever be able to get there, especially in our lifetimes, doesn't seem very possible. I don't know if there's as much interest and as much momentum behind that as there is with space. But with space, now you guys got like Elon Musk, and we could be in a world where I'm sure in our lifetime where we may have the opportunity to commercially go to space through some of these, billionaires like Elon Musk. I think even Jeff Bezos, who's obviously Amazon, he's starting a company, or has a company, I believe. And it's really that thing where people want to get there. They want to go to Mars, and they want to take people, like I'm going on to book my Southwest flight to go home over 4th of July to see my family in Ohio. Like I'm going to space at this time. It's crazy, but you're so right. That's like the one thing. I think that's kind of the next step in exploration for civilians, non-astronauts to go there.
Oh yeah, completely. I would love it. All I need now is for Elon Musk to tweet a lot more about those Dogecoin, and the small amount I have to be worth enough money. Then I'll buy one of those tickets. There we go. That's the way to do it.
There you go. Well, yeah, that seems way more interesting. About what's your Billy Idol story? You found out he could only.
I just upset him a little bit because I was a bit bored. I called him. I didn't call him anything. I just said, "It's like, so what are you going to be doing to make sure that Billy isn't idle?" And he kind of looked at me like, "Oh mate, come on, is this all you've got? Come on, dude.
I've heard it all. I've done 100 interviews today. I'm done."
I know. I think he might have done quite a few by that point. He was a bit sick of us, but no, definitely. I certainly think the most interesting ones have been the astronauts. The ones I've acted like the worst in front of has been some of the soccer players, though, because like luckily I've had the chance to meet several of my like childhood heroes, and in one instance, work with them.
What's that like? Because I know some people say don't meet your heroes. That can be tough, and I've related to you in a sense of where I love sports, I follow sports, and I've had internships through school where I have interned and worked game days and long season and long hours at games. Now, luckily they weren't for my hometown teams because that didn't ruin it for me. But there were times where I'm like, I don't even want to think about going to a baseball game because I've worked so many baseball games. I just can't do it. I'll watch it on TV, but I can't go to a game. So what is that like when you run into your heroes? Because that could be something that, it's never in the middle. It's either a really great experience or you're kind of disappointed.
I've been very lucky. I've never been disappointed. The only person I've been disappointed with myself is myself, pretty much sometimes, because I've turned into a giggling schoolgirl. But so he's got my phone number. He sent me a text message and everything.
Oh, I do the same way. I would freak out.
And there was one period while I was covering football in Moscow when Michael Laudrup, the Danish player who played for Real Madrid, played for Atletico Madrid, played one of the finest players of a generation, became the head coach, and didn't speak any Russian. I was at all of the press conferences. He's Danish, so I don't know if you know, the Danes speak much better English than the English.
Okay.
And we would get to chatting over the interviews, and I was like, Michael, I'm going to be at the training ground. Is there any chance I can grab a quick word with you there? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. Catch me when I'm coming off the pitch. So we stand there and we wait for them to finish training, and he sends the Spartak lads in to go and get stripped and everything like that and get a shower, and he'll come for the meeting. And before he comes in for the meeting, he's like, Peter, ready now. And I'd made sure I kept the ball underneath my foot. And I'm like, I'm going to pass to Michael Laudrup. Yeah. And that's going to be that's going to be the big thing. Well, I kicked the ball at him, and my cameraman, I was like, look, we've got to do it really quickly because he's in a bit of a rush.
Right.
And my cameraman's filming straight away, and Michael Laudrup picks the ball back to me. Before I know it, I'm playing pass with Michael Laudrup during an interview. And I just started thinking whether, the 10, 12, 11, 12-year-old me would not believe this if I told them. Similar with Peter Schmeichel, who I got the chance to work with during the World Cup in 2018 in Russia, which was just a fantastic experience, the World Cup, and working with Big Peter as well. He was a great lad. But I met him first as part of the work. I met him first here in Berlin. He was filming a pro. I think he was meeting with Jürgen Klinsmann, the former German international legend and, of course, former head coach of Team USA. I think at the time he was head coach here at Hertha Berlin, and his son, I think, still plays at Hertha Berlin. But anyway, so I bumps into him, and I'm introduced to him by the producers, and they're like, "Hi, this is Peter. This is Peter." And I went, "Actually, we've met once before." And he's a big giant guy,
right?
Like real massive. Yeah, well, we meet before you at this thing. No, I was at Old Trafford when you won the Premier League title for the first time. You signed my Panini sticker of yourself.
Wow.
You're like basically the equivalent of a baseball card. And he was like, "Oh," and for a second he was like, "Oh God, it's one of these." And then he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember you with the beard, short guy." I was like, yeah, that was me. But no, he was good. He was interesting to talk to as well. And it was like, there was Stan Collymore as well that was working with RT over that World Cup. And I got to sit and watch, I think the first game of the World Cup for England was England's, I'm going to say Tunisia. I think it was Tunisia. I should know that off the top of my head.
Oh.
But anyway, it was in Volgograd, which was pretty awesome. Stalingrad, there's a lot of history. I'd lived in Russia for a long time, never got to Volgograd throughout all my travels. So it was a big, interesting time for me to go there.
Yeah.
But watching the game with these guys and having them go like that, they don't know that I was actually a very poor footballer. I'm talking to them about tactics, going like, "Oh yeah, I agree, Stan. I would do that as well."
Yeah,
completely.
Yeah.
But no, it was good. It was great to meet them, and it was great to work with them. And I'm very lucky with the job that I have at the moment. Is that my role is, I say, I've covered almost everything you can possibly imagine. But at the moment, my job is very much politics, diplomacy, some economics. But every 2 years, they let me go and cover either the World Cup or the European Championships. It's worked out as, which there's nowhere in the world I'm getting that gig. No. And so it's been great. So I was in France for the Euros. I was in obviously Russia for the whole of the World Cup, and I mean that was just phenomenal. Also, I mean, traveling around. It was a country. I mean, I lived in Russia for 7 years. And while I was there, I was lucky enough to get to work places I would never have traveled to. Yeah. You would never, Perm or up in the Ural Mountains, Udmurtia, places like this. I went down into the Caucasus in Nalchik. Actually, I went down there for football, which nearly got me in a bit of trouble with some of the fans there. They wanted to know who I was and why I was with them. There was an incident at about So anyway, I went down there with Spartak Moscow to write an article about away fans in Russia.
Yeah,
and they can be a bit rowdy. And at the time, my Russian was not as good as it is now, and it was barely ropey. But it was a bit in and out. And so some guys that I knew that were traveling down, they said, "Look, we're not going to go on the bus with the hardcore ultras, the fans that are a bit rowdy at times. We're going to drive. But what we'll do is, I know some of them will let you get on the bus and have a bit chat with them. Well, of course, by the time I get on the bus with them, it's about 11 o'clock at night. They have been on a coach since 7 o'clock in the morning. Ooh. And a lot of them have been tucking into the beers since that coach left.
Yeah.
And I'm on there trying to, conduct an interview in my really dodgy Russian. And this one lad's like, basically, for want of a better phrase, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And I had to and I had this moment that just felt like the end of Rocky IV, where he's there and he's like, I saw a lot of you guys doing not liking me and I wasn't liking you too much, but if I can change and you can change, we can all change. Yeah. And I'm like Sunderland, my hometown club, play in red and white, and Spartak are also in red and white as well. And I had a Sunderland t-shirt on, and I'm like, Chuvak, which is basically, dude, yeah, krasny bieli. Ty, krasny bieli. Mój krasny bieli. Yeah, I'm red and white. You're red and white. We're red and white. After that, he was like, oh, yeah, all right, fair enough. Go ahead, your business, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was this. Anyway, I was talking about traveling around Russia, and I got into that ridiculous story. But I loved my time there. It was. I can't believe it's been 3 years since the World Cup, and I haven't been back in 3 years.
Wow.
It's fascinating place to travel around. But yeah, I was very lucky to spend a lot of time there when I did. I love Moscow, man. I think I was in Moscow at the right time. It wasn't the Moscow of the 90s that I moved to, which was apparently a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
A bit in transition. There was still an element of that. And it also, I mean, Moscow, St. Petersburg, they're big European cities now. I don't think there's that much difference in Moscow than Paris or Moscow in, I mean, languages, cultures, things like that. But it's a big modern city.
Got it.
Is the best way to put it. Whereas it was still kind of making that transition when I moved there in 2005. And it really felt like a huge adventure because I had no Russian whatsoever.
Wow.
I was 22 years old. I wasn't completely sure how the Cyrillic alphabet worked. I just kind of vaguely knew it wasn't the same as Latin letters, which resulted in some, trying to find your way around Moscow, looking for a certain restaurant. I mean, no, this is going to make me sound like a complete Philistine, but I used to have to look for signs that would tell me, like, look, the restaurant is on this street. It says restaurant outside it. And I knew if it said restaurant outside it, it was written like Pectopar. And I would have to find the Pectopar on that street because it's spelled restaurant in the in Cyrillic letters. And it was just fascinating. It was brilliant. It was a big adventure. There was a massive music scene at the time. Well, it still is in Moscow. There's always music. There's live music everywhere. But it was like an indie rock music scene that I was really into. And we had a lot of, like, that kind of 2005 until like 2009. I mean, I think everybody had some kind of indie rock band, including myself. We were awful. We were absolutely terrible. It was myself and a diplomat friend of mine, and a lad who's now, I think he works in the town and city planning office in New York City. But he's but yeah, there was the three of us played a few gigs. We were terrible, but it was great fun, and it was having this outside of work, which was also fascinating, covering stuff there. No, there's always a big bit of my heart in Moscow. I love it as a town.
Right.
Fantastic city.
That restaurant story reminds me of a former pitcher for my hometown, Cleveland Indians. He was from the Dominican or somewhere, but his English was not anything, when he came up. And I think he was down in Florida when the Indians had their training facility there. And all he knew how to order was a cheese pizza from like Donato's or Domino's or whatever. And he ate that for 30 straight nights for dinner. That's all he knew how to do. He's like, that's all I know how to do. I know how to ring the phone. I know how to order it. And I know it shows up. And I know I like it. He goes, that's what I know how to do. So that's what he did for like 30 straight days. Hilarious.
Yikes, man. Yeah, I think a lot of it, though, it comes with a lot of the fun of moving to new places. I mean, I didn't really know an awful lot about Germany before I moved here.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know an awful lot about the United States before I moved to Atlanta. I'd been to Disney World, and a friend of my mum's growing up had married an American fella, and they lived in Buffalo and had a place in Sarasota. Okay. And I'd only been to Florida before I moved to America. I moved into Atlanta, and it was a big culture shock at 18, 19 years old, and I mean, similar culture shock moving to Germany. I mean, I actually realized I love living in Germany. I think I'm going to be here for the long haul, because I didn't realize how much I craved rules. I need those rules. I need there to be a system in place that is completely the system. There is no way around it to get things done. I mean, sometimes it drives you insane here. But I mean, put it one way, I had to send a fax in order to get a parking permit for my street last year.
Wow.
I don't think I'd ever sent a fax before.
I've never sent that's for sure.
Yeah, I had to send a fax to the city in order to get it done. Apparently there was a story just this week that they've now stopped faxes completely, because I think with the pandemic last year and people not being able to turn up for appointments, the amount of times they went, well, I don't know, just send us a fax. Send us a what?
A what? Huh?
Fax. Like it's 1985.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I dig it the most here in Berlin. It's a town that I never thought I'd live in, but once I started living here, I knew I was pretty much hooked on I'm from a particularly friendly bit of the UK. They use a lot, or they used to anyway, set up a lot of call centers in the Northeast, particularly for banks, because people like to be told bad news in our accent. Lovely, calm and friendly accents. Well, yeah. But Berlin certainly isn't that. Berlin is not the friendly, welcoming place. But I kind of like the bluntness, the abruptness that you get at times here.
I appreciate
it.
It's
I sometimes I'm like, oh, okay, that's the way it is it? Right. You have a great day. Yeah. And just move on with it like that. But no, it's
I'd much rather, if someone wants me to fuck off, I'd rather have them just get it out of the way and tell me straight up, rather than spend a whole afternoon them pretending to be nice to me, but the whole time they just want me to get the hell out of there. I'm like, hey, it's a waste of your time. If it's a waste of your time, it's a waste of my time too. So let's get it out of the way. It hurts for a second, but I'm like, you know what? Appreciate it. You take it and you move on. And after a while, you either move because you can't stand it, or you get used to it. Yep. And then you're like, okay, this is just the deal now. And I can appreciate that.
Oh, completely. I mean, I dig it the most. But I also like that when sometimes if you're not in the mood for it, being able to go, oh, but you have the best day now. How are you? How are you? Are you doing well? You're all right. And but no, it's a cool place. Look, and it's got a obviously a very troubled history from the 20th century.
Right.
But a amazing history in terms of things that have been done here, and going back through one of those things, obviously what happened in the 20th century with the Nazis, with everything that happened there, so Prussia and everything to do with it basically stricken from the record, even though all of the things to do with Prussia and the German Empire and everything that was there before still exist. So they've got in many ways, they've got a very good way of dealing with their troubled past. But in other ways, there's some things that they don't deal with so well. I think it's like just about everywhere. I mean, we saw what happened in the US with statues. We saw what happened in the UK. And in the UK, we have pretty much a denial that we had an empire almost. Yeah. And that in order for us to have had an empire, in order for us to have ruled an empire, some people had to have been ruled in an empire. And that's often quite forgotten in the British way of thinking about these things. But no, I like living in Germany. I find it suits me.
Yeah. Well, that's great, Peter. I could talk to you all day, man. There's still some stuff that I'm going to get to, but the good thing is we can always do this again. That's the beauty of a podcast.
We can definitely do this whenever you want, man.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2. I know there's still so much more to get to, but I know I got the sense when we did the IG live, I was just like, I wrote a few things down, and then I knew you'd have stories, and we'd go back and forth, and we'd fill up the time. So this was great, man. I really appreciate you doing this, and can't wait for the next time.
We can get on. I've got stories about Kofi Annan liking my suits. I've got stories about being in various war zones. Yeah. We can talk about all kinds.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your sports fandom, even though I don't think we really watch many of the same sports. But I've sat up in the middle of the night watching the Braves. I've sat up in the middle of the night here watching Atlanta. Got into the Braves, good, and they've been good. They're a team to watch now, which is fun.
They're getting there. Yeah. I mean, the one time I do collapse though is if it's anybody from that Sunderland team that played in the 1990s. That's when I'm giggling like a schoolgirl.
Yep.
I used to watch him play.
Yep.
Anyway, but look, mate, absolute pleasure. Anytime you want to get me back on to have another chat, we can talk about anything.
Excellent. Likewise, man. Thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Have a good one, mate.
You as well.